this recording. And then stop. Yes, start.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, welcome to Boostability's September webinar. Today's webinar topic is how do I know my SEO is working? My name is Sunny Nielsen. I am your organizer for this webinar. I am the communications manager here at Boostability. Our presenter today is Colton Miller. He is our senior SEO strategist here at Boostability. And while we're waiting for a few more people to come in, we know the webinar has just started. We thought we would go over just a few of the features here on this webinar. In case you are not familiar with GoToWebinar or haven't been on one like this, we just want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, so you will receive a recording of this webinar. So check your emails. It's usually about 24 hours later that you should be receiving an email with a recording of this webinar so that you can refer back to it at a later time or review it at your leisure. If you have any questions during the presentation, Colton is going to go over a lot of really good information today, but we do try and keep it, continual flow. So if you do have any questions, there is a question box here on the webinar. So feel free to type your questions into the question section, and we will do our best to cover every question and answer as many questions as we have in the time available to us on the webinar. Now, if we don't get to your question on this webinar, don't fret. Just jump on over to Facebook, because any questions that we get asked on the webinar, especially if we have not gotten them answered, we try to carry that conversation over to Facebook so that we can make sure that we get everyone's questions answered, either via direct message or on a Facebook post. So again, if you don't get your question answered in the webinar, we do apologize, but jump on over, find us on Facebook, and we will continue the conversation about how do I know my SEO is working on that platform. So once again, feel free to write any questions in there. There is also a chat feature on the webinar, so feel free to type in any comments, chats. We'd love to hear where everyone's from right now. Feel free to drop that in the chat section. We hope we get people from all over the place, because we love to just get our reach far and wide. So feel free, jump in the chat section, say hi. And while we are just waiting for a few more people to show up, if you are looking for any additional information or resources on SEO or other digital marketing topics, you can always hop onto our website. We have a section called Boost You, and I will put that link into the chat section. And that is an area of free resources that you guys can go to. There's videos, there's walkthrough tutorials on how to do a lot of things in SEO and other digital marketing topics. And again, we are so grateful that you're here online with us, and we'd love for you to connect with us on all of our other digital platforms. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We'd love to see you. So as we are gathering, we have Colorado, Connecticut, Indianapolis. Hey, Midwest. I love the Midwest. It's so beautiful out there. Thank you so much for everyone who has shown up thus far. And we have quite a few people already here in attendance, so let's go ahead and turn the time over to Colton, because we know that your time is valuable. And we'll go ahead and get started, and as more people show up, they can just join in the conversation. So Colton, come on in and tell us all about how do I know if my SEO is working.
Awesome. Thanks, Sunny. So like she said, we're going to go ahead and get started here. The topic for today is coming up because we received this question on our Twitter. How can I evaluate that my SEO strategy is working for me? So we're going to go through, kind of give you what to evaluate. So a few key things that I would look at just to determine if you're on the right track, if SEO is working for you, if you have an agency or if you have somebody doing it for you. some things that you could evaluate to say, okay, they're on the right track, they're working for me, whatever it might be. So first thing I would look at is crawlability and indexing. I'm going to go into in-depth with all of these, so just giving you what we're looking at today. Visibility and ranking, traffic and website usage, and then conversions and sharing. So essentially, just to kind of recap those, crawlability and indexing, are the search engines finding you? Are they actually crawling your website? Are they ignoring you? Are they not ignoring you? Number two, visibility. Are you achieving rankings? Are you actually seeing traffic from those rankings? And just in general seeing some sort of visibility there or movement. Number three, obviously that goes with the traffic, and then website usage. Are people staying on your website? Are they just coming and then leaving? And then conversions and sharing. Are people sharing your content? Are they converting as you expected? Are they interacting with your website a little bit more? So those are things that we're going to be looking at more in depth today. So the first one, crawlability and indexing. So this is absolutely where you should start. If you're just barely getting into SEO or you're just barely starting a website, start out with this, this segment. I would highly recommend that you use a tool like Google Search Console to essentially find out critical errors on your website, find out if it's being crawled. You can also submit your sitemap and different things like that to it to help that crawlability and help the search engine basically discover your website and subsequently index your website. Just to note, if your website is having any troubles being indexed, it's unlikely that you'll see any results, just because without being indexed, you're not included in their overall search algorithm, which means that people search for a subject, they're never going to find you because you're not there. However, if you have any concerns about that, or if you're not sure, as Sunny already pointed out, our Boost You that we have online is a great resource. It goes into in depth with a lot of these subjects that I'll talk about today, but in particular with the indexing and the crawlability. So going a little bit deeper, basically you want to ask yourself, is your website getting crawled regularly? That's something you can see inside of that Google Search Console. You can see how much they're crawling your website. So if you have a 60-page website, are they crawling 30 pages out of 60? And why is that? And oftentimes they'll tell you why, or they might give you some errors on there. So if they're hitting a page and let's say it's coming up with like a 404 error where the page isn't being found, there might be an issue where you have a broken link or something to that effect, or maybe even have a broken referral where somebody used a link to a page that page no longer exists. So there's all different stuff, but basically is your website getting crawled, and is it getting crawled regularly? The search engines index your website and its content. So again, within Search Console, there's some nifty areas that they have to basically show you if you're getting any impressions or different things like that related to if you're being essentially found or being displayed inside of search engines. So that's another good thing to ask yourself or try to figure out to determine if you're on the right course. Are there any site issues or errors that can be corrected? Again, one of the big advantages of Google Search Console is that they're going to call out any errors that they find in doing their crawl. So again, if they hit that page and they find 2 broken links, they're going to tell you what those links are. They're going to tell you what's the error that they're getting. And then they have a lot of resources. We have a lot of resources as well to help you resolve those. Of course, if you have an agency or somebody else who's kind of helping you with the SEO, if you're able to take those errors to them or show them, they should be able to correct those for you as well. And then kind of lastly, you can optimize, can you optimize anything else on your website? So going through, there will be things like site speed. If site speed's coming up as an error, that's something you can fix. If you've got a robot that's not appearing or isn't there, or maybe it's giving the wrong message to the search engines, Search Console is going to tell you that, and you're going to be able to go in there and diagnose that and obviously go in and hopefully fix that. So you want to just be on the lookout, especially when looking at the crawling and the indexing portion, and just make sure that you're continually updating your website and continually making sure that it's kind of up to best practices, up to date. So next one we're going to cover, visibility and ranking. So there are some of the more initial metrics you want to look at when gauging SEO success. They represent the roads that help bring traffic to your website. So a good tool that I would recommend here would be like SEMrush. You can find rankings. You can even find keywords that you may not have been aware that you actually showed up for. Inside of the visibility and ranking, the first thing I would ask is, are you showing up in the search engines for user queries? So using something like SEMrush as an example, you could essentially go in there and figure out if you're showing up for keywords that, again, you might not have been aware of, or if you have a list of keywords that you're tracking, are you seeing movement? Are you seeing yourself go from not being found to at least being up on the third or fourth page of the site? And hopefully, are you seeing yourself on the first page? So just wanting to see some general movement there and just showing up. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be first place, at least not for this particular metric to look at, but just are you seeing movement and are you seeing yourself show up in the search? So what are the keywords that you're showing up for your website? So going back to that speculation that maybe you put yourself inside of SEMrush and you find, well, there's all these keywords that I wasn't expecting myself to show up for. That could be another sign as far as, is that a good sign or is that a bad sign? If you're finding that you show up for a lot of keywords but they're either not related to what you're providing, or you don't think they're going to yield a good user experience, meaning that people searching for that probably aren't looking for me, then there's probably some benefit there to understanding that as far as, should you modify your website, do you need to change a page, just to maybe make yourself a little bit more relevant to those keywords that you do want. And obviously the flip side of that is that if you are showing up for the keywords that you want and you're already showing up there, then again, you know your SEO is working, you know what you're doing is on course with what you're trying to do. Another one is your website. Are the keywords that you're showing up for, are they increasing or decreasing? Meaning, are you showing up for more keywords now than you used to, or are you showing up for less than you used to? When you first start out your website, you're not going to show up for any. So a good baseline there is to try to find more and more keywords that you rank for, and then determining if, as an example, you go down, have you lost rankings? Did you remove a page and that page happened to be tied to 4 other keywords that were ranking? Something to that effect. Or maybe you might have a seasonal product, so you bring it out, you achieve a lot of rankings, maybe you take that product off your website. Does that require you to lose rankings, or is it something that maybe you can keep that page up? Just kind of gives you some more insight to how you should interact with your website, what you can do with certain things. So a good example on this one would be like real estate websites, where oftentimes when a listing is inactive or it's been sold already, they usually remove those. One possibility is keeping that content up there with just a referral saying, this website used to be for sale, or sorry, this house used to be for sale, but it is no longer for sale. So a way they kind of expand your website, keep some keywords that page might have, but then still satisfying the user. They might see that website or see that house, and then you can show them other related houses or something that's similar or comparable to that house that they could maybe look a little bit further. So there's different ways based off of how many keywords you are or are not showing up for that you can gauge if you're doing well. Are there keywords that you rank that surprise you? So going back to kind of the one that we talked about before is, what are the keywords you're showing up for? And this is a little bit more in depth with, are those keywords that you want to show up for, or are those keywords that you figure you should show up for? I know when I'm doing a lot of initial keyword research for a lot of clients, there's some speculation about what keywords are going to be best for them, how people might describe the business, or how people might find them. A good example is I had a phone call the other day with a client, and he does essentially videography, but when we looked at that particular phrase, it was really tied to a lot of weddings, receptions, a lot of stuff that he didn't necessarily do. He was more in line with like filmmaking, as an example. And so that might be a scenario where he's already optimized, he's already there for videography, and maybe we need to revise that because that's not where his core audience is. That's not where he's looking to essentially attract business. So looking for those keywords, doing that keyword research, and obviously diving into what it is that you actually show up for and what surprises you there can help lead to what you should correct on your page, on your website, to get the rankings that you ultimately want. So jumping over to traffic and website usage. These are kind of mid-phase metrics, something that I would evaluate, let's say mid-camp or kind of towards the middle of the campaign, somewhere around 6 months to 9 months, somewhere around there, to look at these metrics. And essentially what you want to evaluate is determine if people are coming to your website and then basically how they're using your website. Now, the tool I would suggest for this one is Google Analytics. You can view your visitors. You can see where they came from. You can see how they use your website. Google's done a fantastic job of trying to give you a lot of tools and a lot of ways of viewing data to determine certain things. Is a page working for you? Are people working through kind of your funnel the way they should? Are people hitting a page and just not liking it, and subsequently is that something that needs to change? Maybe it's an expected thing, right? If somebody lands on a page and it's just a give me your email and we'll give you some more information, then probably not going to stick around for 5 minutes. And so that might be a good indicator for you, where if you have a really long article, or let's say you have a tutorial on your website, or you have something where you know it's going to take 10 minutes for somebody to read through it, you can gauge if people actually are reading that, if they're just hitting it, skipping it, or hitting it and going somewhere else, and just kind of determine, is there a better way to essentially mold your website. So kind of going back here, kind of recovering a little bit from that. So do you have people that are reading your website? Are people staying on there? Are they leaving? Are they diving deeper? Are they going to 2 or 3 pages on your website? Those are some things that you can evaluate to see if your traffic is using your website correctly. Where do the majority of your users come from? Are they coming from search engines? Are they coming from social media, direct? That can help answer as far as, is there an emphasis that you need to put somewhere else, or is there something that maybe you need to detract from somewhere and put somewhere else? As an example, if you're seeing that a lot of people are coming from social media, not a whole lot are coming from the search engines, maybe it's time that if you're investing heavily into social media, maybe you dial that back a little bit, or do more SEO related tasks, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're saying, you know what, a lot of people are coming from the search engines. They're not using my site well, or at least they just don't seem to like my website. Maybe I need to do more social outreach. So understanding where your audience is coming from, and if you have a local website, another good thing to look at there is what area are they coming from? Are they looking in your area? Are they finding you outside of your area? If you have a local business and you only service a 15, 20-mile radius, and you see that a lot of people are hitting you 50 miles out, either you're really relevant for those and you're just not able to satisfy them or serve them, and maybe that's something you need to change in your business. Or you might say, you know what, it's not really what I'm looking for, and maybe, again, kind of focus your content around your particular area just to make sure that you're getting those hyper-relevant leads. So what are the most popular pages on your website? It's another thing that you can view inside of Google Analytics, and you can, again, slice the data kind of many different ways, but you can determine what are the top pages that people are visiting, what are the top pages people are spending the most time on, what pages are people coming into the most, so what are kind of your traffic pages, and from there that can help you determine what's needed on those pages. If you see that a lot of people are staying on a really deep page, but it's, it's pretty buried within your content, maybe you need to bring that more to the surface, or something to that effect, where you can determine and you can kind of help gauge what else might be needed, and again, just if you're being successful just by what the top pages are. Are you wanting a page to get traffic? Are you expecting that much traffic? Are you expecting more traffic and you're not getting it? Different things like that. Is the traffic increasing day over day, week over week, month over month, even year over year? That's another good metric. You do have to keep seasonality in mind. So if you're like a landscaper, as an example, you'll always kind of see your peaks during the summer months and the spring months. And then as you get into the fall and the winter months, obviously that's going to die off. However, if you can compare like a year over year view, you can go through and you can say, okay, year by year, am I gaining more traffic than I had last year? Is my business growing from an online standpoint? If you have a fairly consistent business, or let's say you have like an e-commerce business where searches are pretty steady per month, it could be a good gauge to say, is it a week over week, am I increasing? Is it a month over month that I should be increasing? If you're doing a lot of other efforts like blogging, again, social media, something to that effect, you can always go back and say, did that impact my website? Did that lead to more traffic? And all sorts of stuff. So basically just determining, are you getting more traffic? Do users engage with your website positively? So we've kind of briefly talked over this, but a little bit more detail. Basically, are people using your website as you would expect? Do you have a task within that website that people need to try to do, or is it something that people just need to read? Are they just trying to submit something? Are they trying to buy something? Are they just trying to find your contact information so they can call you? All those things can be determined just by looking at some of the usage data inside of Google Analytics. And you can say, okay, people are liking this page, people aren't liking this page, and that can be some key indicators to, do you need to change something? Is what you've done working? If you've modified the page and now you're just trying to view and see if it's been a positive change, that's something you can determine as well. And last thing, are they getting their intended experience from your website? Are they accomplishing what they came for? So this is in kind of reference to the users on the other end, the people that are actually searching for it. If somebody's looking for a plumber, as an example, they're probably looking for either a phone number or a quote or some form of getting in touch with you to get a quote. So you have to ask yourself, are you satisfying that? Are you providing that information to some of those top pages on your website? Some other things that you can ask is, like, if you're in e-commerce and you have a category page and then you have a specific product page, are people going to that product page? Are they actually diving into that, or do they hit that category page and stop? And if they stop there, why? Maybe they're just looking for information, and if that's the case, maybe you need to create a blog. Maybe you need to create a static page that has that information. There's all sorts of different ways that you can determine and tell if people are actually using your website, and if they're essentially, if you're satisfying what they're looking for. Top thing I would tell you there is just put yourself in the customer's shoes and just say, is this something that I would be looking for, that I would want to see to do something or accomplish something? Most of the time when people do searches, they oftentimes have an intent, whether it's learning or sharing or buying something to that effect. There's always some sort of action to be taken when somebody's doing a search. And so just make sure that your website is handling that correctly. Again, another way to gauge your success, if you modified a page or if you had an agency modify your page, are they satisfying that intent? Creating a brick wall of content just to get yourself some rankings is a way to get rankings, but it's not necessarily a way to keep people on the website and keep users engaged. And that's something that search engines pay attention to. So you want to make sure that you're trying to satisfy that taskification for your website and for your pages. Next metrics I would look at, kind of the last ones here, would be the conversion and sharing aspect. So kind of the final metric to try and measure the benefits of your SEO would be to analyze your conversions and shareability. It comes down to the bottom line for your goals of your website, and if you're meeting, succeeding, or basically failing at them. So oftentimes when you have a website or you have any sort of business at all, you want to make sure that you have some sort of goal lined up with that. That could be a revenue goal. It could be a total amount of sales goal. It could just be even a lead capture goal, right? I want to try to get 5 leads out of this per day or whatever it might be. And it might come down to, in some cases, if you just have a blog, it might just come down to, I just want people to read my content. I just want viewers. I just want something that indicates that people are liking my content. So having those goals lined up is going to allow you to essentially compare at this stage if you're hitting those or if you're not. One thing that I would use for this, and one kind of cool tool that I like to use to compare content, would be BuzzSumo. It's a great website, but basically you can discover the best content related to a certain topic or keywords, and that will allow you to either help create something unique and something that's fantastic that people are going to like, or maybe you can compare your content. If you've already written 4 blogs about a subject, you can go in and say, okay, is this subject on par with what people have shared before, what they've liked before? And it might be the case where you say, what, my article is too similar to that, and I need to modify it in this way to make it better. Of course, it could be in the other realm too, where you're saying, well, maybe I need some content ideas. You can go in there, pop that in, and you can see what people are doing and what's working and what's not working. So again, just kind of going back over it, do you have goals defined for your website? What are you trying to accomplish, or what are you going to gauge as far as saying, yes, this is working, either keep investing or keep working towards it, keep pouring time into it. You should always have the goal. If you don't have it, get it set up so that way you can start analyzing it and saying, am I hitting that goal or am I not? So what is that end goal? You know, is it to sell? Is it to inform? Is it to entertain? Doesn't have to be just a, you know, a pure, let's say, a money standpoint. It can come down to multiple different forms of what you're trying to accomplish. There isn't a singular goal. Every business is slightly different. They might have some of the same similar goals, but they're all different or trying to go about it a different way. So are you meeting your goals and objectives? Again, pretty self-explanatory, gone over it. Basically just measuring your content or measuring your user engagement. Are you hitting, missing, failing your objectives? Is that something you can tell? And if you can't tell, that's something that you can work on to try to figure out and implement some of these tools, maybe do some things on your website, or even contact an expert or somebody else that can maybe help you out with that a little bit more and either understanding those or kind of comparing against and saying, am I doing well? So is your content getting shared? Pretty self-explanatory. If it's not, why not? Again, look at that BuzzSumo. Is there something wrong with the content? Is there something wrong with the audience? Is there something wrong with maybe the forum, as an example? Maybe some people prefer, maybe the audience would like to see something more in line of like a video and where you have a wall of text. And is that something that you can feasibly do? You know, if people are doing it, what is the most popular content? Again, going back to the blog example, if you have a 100 page blog, or if you have 100 pages of content, what are the top pages? Most likely it's going to be kind of a narrow few that are doing that, and you have to ask yourself why, and say, what can I do to help duplicate that, or what can I do to help replicate that? Subsequently, you can also look at that the other way and say, if I do have 100 pages, are people actually visiting that? And comparing that and saying, am I doing a good job? Am I not? Is whoever's working on it, are they doing a good job, or are they not? And then again, compare your content to other similar content that's been shared. Again, BuzzSumo is great for that, or you can kind of look on that on your own. You can put those keywords in, you can see what content is showing up, and you can do kind of your own little comparison there. And if you're, let's say you have, you're outsourcing some of your content to like a text broker or something like that, where you're giving them an idea, you're paying them, they're the ones writing the content. You can kind of do the same comparison and say, hey, are they doing a good job for me? Are they putting me on par with them? Are they creating content that's okay, but it's not impressive, or something else like that? If you have a copywriter, another thing you can do to just make sure that, again, they're working for you and they're doing what's going to get you the most benefit. So what can you do to improve your website or its content? So again, kind of gleaming back from all of the stats that we've talked about and everything, you can go back through and say, are people interacting with the content as they should, or are they not? Again, if you have a wall of text, maybe you expect people to be on there longer. Maybe you need pictures, whatever it might be. There might be some other things to help kind of indicate that. So is something with your SEO, or is this something that your SEO can help with? So again, going back to improving the website, if you have an agency or you have somebody who's doing the SEO, are they able to help you out with like content creation or expansion, or is that somebody else that can help you out with that, or is it something that you need to look into doing? Social media is a great example of this, where you might have an SEO guy, or you might be paying for SEO, but you might not have somebody who's helping you do the social media, or you might be trying to do that yourself. So it's a good comparison to say, is that something that I need to improve, or is it something that somebody can help me with? So kind of going over the tools, the recap for the tools here that I'm suggesting. Google Analytics, I'd use it for traffic and for site usage. You obviously get traffic, you get usage data, you get conversions, and then sharing. So you get a lot of data out of Google Analytics. If you don't have it set up, it's free. Get it today. And you can start determining if people are using your pages, and again, just kind of determining if your SEO is working. Google Search Console, again, use that for website crawling, indexing, and visibility. So crawlability, the indexing, visibility, and again, the impressions. Search Console will show you keywords that you're showing for. They will try to give you some rankings in there as well. And usually it's just a kind of a good gauge as far as, am I in the right area, am I not? SEMrush for keyword and competition. It's a great discovery tool. Visibility, rankings, sharing, and then content analysis. They actually have a ton of tools. SEMrush is a paid tool, so you'd have to either sign up for that membership or whatever it might be. But it's a great tool, has a lot of resources, and has a lot of in-depth analysis tools that you can use for your website, blog, whatever it is you might have. BuzzSumo, again, compare your content and other content and find influencers. That's another great thing about the tool, is that it can allow you to find people that are actually sharing that, or see who are the top people that shared that and who got the most hits. And it might not be the case that your content is bad or anything. It just might be that you're not reaching the right person, and BuzzSumo can help you find that. So a little bit more on the visibility side. Is it something that people want to see? Again, is it something people are sharing, or is it something that could be shared? Find the influencers, and then obviously the engagement. You can tell what content is working or isn't working for other people, and that can help you create more content or help you model your content after that. Also can help you out with trust as well. If you've got a lot of people talking about a certain subject a certain way, and you're not talking about it that way, but that's the way that's working, it might be the way where you need to go with that, trust that, and kind of model your content that way to, again, get people who are looking for it already and are trusting that way of either having the content formatted or whatever it might be. Another one is a free website score. It's an overview of your website success and changes in the success metrics. So if you just wanted to know how am I doing in general, you can use free website score. I believe it's just right here. Oh, go back. freewebsitescore.com. Great website. It'll allow you to kind of see how well you're doing, and just kind of get a quick glimpse into if your website's working for you, or if it's not, or if there's a few things that you can improve on. So just a few tips for success. Websites are just like people. They're all unique. Don't take that for granted. It's your website. The way that you phrase content and everything is unique to you. Don't be afraid to write content. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Even if you do like I'm not so great at spelling and whatnot, but if that can bring its own flair to your website. So again, just be unique, especially in your writing style and your content style. If you like seeing a lot of stuff in pictures, create pictures. There's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you're optimizing those all the way through. But again, just make sure you're being yourself at the end of the day. What makes your SEO successful is ultimately defined by you and your company goals. So at the top end, you might have some very core goals, and those ones that we kind of talked about where, you know, I really want to get people that are, let's say, trying to sell something, or I'm trying to buy something from me. So I'm looking for like a revenue goal, or I might be looking for a lead goal. Those are the things you want to keep in mind. However, those are at the bottom of the funnel. Those are going to kind of be here and there. They're not going to be constant, at least not in most cases. And then you want to define maybe what are some of your higher level goals from that. You know, in order to get a lot of people buying, do you have to have a lot of people hitting a certain page, or trying to get to kind of like a checkout page? So those are other things. Again, it's going to kind of be less than other areas, but it is something that you want to define and make sure that you're measuring. And then you define that kind of upper level goals, something that starts getting people in. You know, again, going back to the e-commerce example, your goal is to have people buy. You want to make sure you get people to that shopping cart page or that checkout page. And in order to do that, you've got to get people that are actually landing on, you know, your product pages, not necessarily your category pages. So people that are looking for a very specific product, you need to make sure that you have the descriptions, have everything like that to make sure that you get people coming into that page, which gives you an increased chance of getting them to go through the rest of the funnel. And then obviously you have the last portion there, which is kind of the overall, the very top of the funnel. Blogs and whatnot can help out with that, where it's just discovery information, it's just evergreen content, it's stuff that is really helpful to a user but is not necessarily spurring any sort of direct action. It's just more of a trust building factor between you and that searcher. Again, in the e-commerce, is that somebody hits your category page, it's really well done. It gives them all the information they need, but they're not ready to buy yet. At least you've given them the information, and when they get ready to buy, hopefully they'll remember your name and they'll come back to you and go through the whole funnel and again, give you a purchase there. So again, just make sure that you have goals set up for your company, make sure they're defined, and just make sure that you're tracking those and monitoring those. And keep in mind that it's not always just the bottom end ones that you have to define, it's also the high end ones as well, the ones that actually aren't going to lead to any conversions, but that are kind of a good faith metric to get you to the end goal. So different objectives require different priorities. This is so true when it comes to SEO. If you have a website, you're saying, you know what, I need to do some social media, I need to do some blogging, and I have some site errors I need to fix. It might not be as simple as, well, let me just hire a copywriter and let's start doing that. It might be a scenario where you're saying, well, I got to pick one of the three, and I need to pick which one, you know, I got to essentially bite the bullet with. And in this scenario, it'll probably be the crawling and the indexing to make sure that your website's found and is actually included in the indexes, and as opposed to trying to market your website or expand your website, right? And so there's always going to be a shift in priorities, and something that might be the bottom of the list might have to come up to the top of the list, and it's going to jumble some things around. It's not a bad thing. Just keep in mind that SEO is a continuous improvement of your website, and so juggling those priorities is always going to happen, just like with any other aspect of the business. SEO is a game of strategy. Just like chess, if you rush it, you often set yourself up for failure. Basically, words to live by, especially when it comes to online. What you do today, especially in the SEO world, does not happen immediately. As far as the results, it oftentimes takes 3 to 6 months to see the benefit of that. So by doing a social campaign today does not mean that you're going to have immediate traffic, but it does mean that you can get some immediate traffic, and hopefully you gain some followers and whatnot that can kind of help expand your content and help expand your influence as you move on. Same thing with a blog. A blog is not overnight traffic. However, it does expand your website. It does give you more chances to get people in your website, and obviously gives people a chance to trust your website and trust you. So it's a constant game of strategy, and you're constantly trying to outmaneuver your enemies and your competitors, essentially, and just make sure that you are the top dog and that you always come out ahead. Testing and improving your website is a necessity in SEO. So just because you look at your website and you say, you know what, I'm satisfied it's got 5 pages, don't stop there. You can either expand your content, you can either make your content more digestible, you can break up your content into multiple subjects. This one I speak to like local especially, where you might have a services page, but you could expand that into all of your different services and exactly what you do and how you help, and maybe even give a case study or two on what you've done in the past. And those things can help you get more keyword impressions, get more keyword rankings, obviously more traffic, and at the very least to get you more trust with the search engines and users. If they come to your website because you have a great DIY tutorial on replacing a toilet, they're going to help you when they have a plumbing emergency. They're going to remember that, hey, that guy helped me, or remember, you know what, I just remember that guy, here's his website, let me go to it and let me sign up. So that's everything I had, at least for this webinar. As far as connecting with me, feel free to connect with me at Twitter. It's at @hectic_C. Ask me any questions that you might have on there. And I would love to hear from you guys.
Thank you so much, Colton. We appreciate all of the information that you have presented today. Excuse me. We do have a few questions that have come in that I think are really important. The first one is from Andrew, and he wrote that we have 27,404 errors suddenly appear. Should they be worried, and how do they figure out what those could be?
Absolutely. So I would say you've identified those somehow. I'm going to assume that it's through Search Console. And hopefully you can kind of maybe take some company history, and it kind of depends. So I'll throw out the scenarios that I can think of that might be plaguing you there. If you're seeing that many, first off, ask yourself how many out of how many, right? If it's 27,000, is that out of 1,000,000 pages? Is that out of 50,000 pages? You know, if it's half of your website receiving 404 errors, yeah, there's a huge priority there, something that you definitely need to look into. If it's out of 1,000,000 pages, it's something that I would look to see, you know, what can you do to help impact most of those, but I wouldn't get hung up on trying to solve every last single one for a website that large. I bring up company history as well, in the sense that if you are seeing those pop up overnight, that's really uncharacteristic unless you do have a really large website that's getting crawled fairly constantly. Although even then it would trickle in over time. But the point is that if you just maybe went through and did like a redesign, or maybe you just revamped your website, and so you're taking all the old URLs, you're creating new URLs, and maybe you tried to duplicate the URLs, but maybe that didn't work out exactly as it needed to be, that might be the case where you can say, it was the switch to the new website, or the switch to the revamp or the redesign, and you can start there to investigate what's going on. Maybe they didn't implement some redirects correctly. It might be the case where you said, you know what, all the links were the same, they just happened to change what the URL was from what it was before. Different things along those lines. So that's where I would start. Just kind of recap, I would start off with how big, you know, kind of what % of your total website is being effective. If it's, I'd say, less than 10%, it's something to worry about, but not anything that's going to like cause a fire. And again, just go back to the company history. What's changed recently that could have caused that? And to solve it, I would use Search Console. That's going to be your best bet to essentially find those. Another tool that you can use, just to give you kind of a bonus tool, would be, what is it, Screaming Frog. They have a great tool, especially if you have a large website. You can increase the memory in there, and that would allow you to crawl like 1,000,000 pages. It takes a long time, but you could crawl, and you could find out specifically, are there broken links that are creating those 404s, or is it just a page that's being referred from somewhere else that's maybe creating those? Different stuff like that to help diagnose and solution that.
Wonderful. Thank you for that information, Colton. I'm sure most people on here will find that very useful. We have another question that has come through from Joey about some broken links. I've seen broken links when using Google Search Console, and I can't find them anywhere on my site. Is it possible that they are finding old links?
Definitely a possibility. I would say it depends on how often and are they constantly hitting those. Meaning that if you're looking at, let's say you've got a service page, right? And let's say you've either removed that service page or have switched that, but let's say your home page still points to the old URL, that's going to throw up that broken link to you there. As far as identifying it, I would say find out what the URL is from Webmaster Tools. They're going to provide that. If it's like a dynamic URL where it's being popped up because of a query or something like that, I wouldn't be overly concerned with trying to address it, just because it might have been a case where somebody searched that, it was found, or something like that, where cookies were providing that information to a search engine and they hit that and indexed it. It could be the case as well where they do have an old URL, and so they're trying to just re-hit that, but maybe you've redirected that URL or you've created a new URL. It might be the case where you need to put a redirect on that old page or canonicalize it just to make sure that there's nothing there. I would say get the URL from Search Console. Try to identify where that might be found. So if you have like a product page that is providing that error, maybe you need to look in that particular category and see if there's any other links that might be in there, and obviously kind of click around, right? You might look at it and you might have either done some content changes, or maybe there was a refresh in kind of where you're getting your data from for that page, and the name may have changed, but maybe the old, let's say the link didn't change, right? So they might be referring to an old link. So there's a few scenarios there. Again, I would just start off with what's the URL, trying to identify where that could be from, and then trying to go to that page and then trying to determine if something could have changed to give that error. And then again, if it's a dynamic thing or if it's something that's really old, I wouldn't be overly concerned. I would just kind of keep an eye on it. If it keeps constantly coming back up, it's not a case where they're just crawling an old URL that shouldn't be there anymore. It's being referred to somewhere. So if it's constantly coming up, again, try to go in and find out where that's coming from. Otherwise, let it go by the wayside and let Google try to remove it out of their own indexing.
Thank you so much, Colton, for that information. Our next question comes from Alexandria. How do you figure out if your keyword rankings are increasing or decreasing?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, well, twofold is that your rankings, and if they're increasing, hopefully when you're creating your pages or your website, or even if you didn't do that when creating the website, kind of going back through, I would define what keywords are that you want to look at or try to track. In some cases, it might even be made-up keywords. Keywords that, as an example, the Google's keyword planner maybe shows that there's no traffic, but you know what? 1 or 2 people might search for that per month. And so those are keywords that you just want to put into a platform like SEMrush, or if you have an SEO, hopefully they're doing it for you. Just some sort of keyword tracking platform. Another one that I would suggest would be called ProRank Tracker. Those guys only do keyword ranking and keyword tracking. So you put it in a platform like that, and they will go through and they will try to find out for your website what your ranking is for a keyword every single day. And from there you can determine, are they moving up positively or they're not. Another good thing to do is say, here's 100 keywords that I want to try to find if I'm relevant for. Again, try to see if you're ranking for those, and then if you find, okay, 65 out of 100 I'm ranking for, those are ones that you can start tracking today if you haven't tracked them before. Or again, like I suggested in the presentation, use a tool like SEMrush, and you can go through and essentially have them try to tell you what they think you're relevant for or what you are showing up for according to their index. And you can say, oh, there's 30 keywords I didn't even realize that I was ranking for that I'll continue to track to see if I'm making positive headway or if I'm going the other way.
Great. And connected with talking about optimization and reports, Christopher asks, when you optimize a website, how soon can you expect to see changes reflected in your reports?
Absolutely. So kind of there's a few different ways to answer that. I'll try to answer each one. If you're doing, let's say, just text changes where you're going in and you're either modifying content on a page or you're optimizing a page, I would probably say, depending on when Google indexes it and kind of refreshes their index, one thing that you have to think when you think of kind of Google taking account of like SEO and whatnot, and the reason why it takes so long is because they might update it in basically one data bank or one hub that they have for it. But you've got to understand that they have hundreds of thousands of hubs all around the world, which help support Google.com and all of its searches and all of its index. And so just because it updates in one hub, that might only affect you maybe locally, where if you're more national or even international, rolling those updates out to all of those hubs, that can take months. So I would say kind of a rule of thumb is that if you're optimizing the website or a page or the content, give it 1 to 2 months to see some positive change or some positive impact from, let's say, like a traffic or a ranking aspect. If you're adding links to your website or going out and trying to build some of those relationships and those links to help establish it, you're probably looking around more the 3 to 6 months to start seeing those changes. And it doesn't mean that it's going to go from 0 to 100 either. It just means that they might only see 1 or 2 links, even though you built 5 in the first 3 months. And then after 4 months, now they're seeing all 5 of those links that you built. But maybe you built another 5 more, and those are going to take a little bit more time for Google to see that. So those are kind of the 2 areas I would do, or 2 areas that I would focus on from a metric standpoint if your SEO is working within a proper time frame.
Thank you, Colton. Our next question comes from Alexandria again. She's asking, how do we decrease our bounce rate on our website?
Right. So great question. Very complex one. I would say you have to look at the page and kind of do your own little test trial to say, essentially as an example, bounce rate, is it something I expect or not? Bounce rate does not always mean a negative association, so like a contact us page is a great example where you might expect to have a pretty high bounce rate on a contact us page because hopefully people are searching for your brand. They're saying, I need a phone number for, company ABC. They land on that page, they get the information, and they bounce. So don't always take bounce rate as a complete negative. However, if you're looking at a page and you're saying, you know what, there's a lot of content here, people shouldn't be bouncing, again, I refer you, use that BuzzSumo and kind of look for what that topic is or what that page is trying to accomplish. Even look at competitors and say, is there something that I'm not providing or something that this page isn't providing that other people are providing? Look at the first page of Google in particular when you're kind of making that comparison, because Google has a lot more data than even what you'll have access to, what I have access to, what anybody's going to have access to. And based off of their search, you can essentially kind of glean what's working and what they're seeing is working and what's not. So again, if you're looking at a page and you're saying, you know what, that should help me out for keyword, A, so do that search for keyword A, look at the top 5 people and say, what is this guy doing? What's she doing? Do they have a list where I don't have a list? Maybe I need to include a list on my website. Or maybe they're going through and they're giving very specific pricing structure or something like that on a very complex subject. And maybe that's something I need to do as well. And I would basically try to take the pieces that you don't have and merge them with the pieces that you have to create a kick-ass page that's going to help you rank for more things and hopefully decrease that bounce rate.
Thank you, Colton. Our next question comes from ECI. How do companies prepare and adjust to Google's periodic algorithm shakeups and updates?
Good question, good question. So I would say for the most part, unless you have a really large website, and when I say large, I mean like 500,000 pages plus, probably not something that you have to be overly concerned with. And I mean that in the sense that if you have let's even say that you have a 50-page website, as long as you're doing what you can to optimize it, constantly improve it, and keep it up to date, and obviously play off those user signals, you're going to be doing everything in your power and everything that you can do that's going to be in line with Google's goal. The one thing to keep in mind, especially when it comes to algorithm updates and being concerned about future updates, hurting or impacting your website, is just kind of asking the question that Google's trying to ask, which is this a good website and is it good for a searcher? If you can say yes or look at that and say, you know what, my page is popping up, like an ad or something before people even see my content, and that's leading to a negative experience, that might be something that you need to correct on your end because, again, you're not creating a good user experience. And so glean with things like that, take it from the customer's perspective, and if you're doing everything you can to make that website up to date and make it the best resource it can be, I wouldn't even be concerned about algorithm updates.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next question comes from Artie. He asks, any links to learn more about how to use Google Analytics effectively for SEO purposes? Do you have any recommendations?
Say that one more time.
He's looking for specific links or areas to learn more about using Google Analytics effectively for SEO purposes.
Absolutely. Check our website. Again, the Boost View, we do have some good courses in there regarding kind of data and data that we might look at inside of there. I believe there's also a little bit of a tiny course on either setting up analytics or getting a little bit more information from that. Another resource, and probably the biggest resource that you can find, is go to Google themselves. And essentially what you might want to look for is like Google Analytics certification. So Google Analytics certification. Search that inside of Google. They have a whole long course, and it's 100% geared towards what metrics and how could you use Google Analytics to essentially view and gauge if your website's doing well or hitting those goals and whatnot using the data that analytics provides you. So again, I would say go to our website, go to the Boost You, use the resources that are in there. If you're still looking for more, if you're saying, you know, what Boost You has is not quite as advanced as I'm looking for, that's when I would go in and look for the Google Analytics certification, and you can find a plethora of information there. Of course, doing a general query as well is a great way. Go onto Google and just search for things like, you know, best SEO metrics to look at, or best metrics in Google Analytics to look at for SEO. Doing some of those queries are going to pop up a lot of great resources, probably a few things from Boostability as well, that are going to tell you the metrics that you should or could focus on specifically inside of Google Analytics.
Thank you very much. We have another person asking, apparently a few minutes ago you mentioned a tracking site pro or something like that. They just want clarification on any tracking systems or softwares that you were referring to.
Yeah. So I actually typed it out inside of the chat there. It's called Pro Rank Tracker. You can just search that on the web. I'm sure you'll find our website, or go to proranktracker.com. They do have a free version. It allows you to track some small stuff. They have a paid version, which is really good as well. That's a tool that I actually actively use kind of on a daily basis to track some external websites for me. So I highly recommend it. It has a lot of great data. They also have some functionality similar to SEMrush, where if you put your website in, and let's say that somebody else using their platform has used other keywords that are similar, but you didn't use those keywords, they'll actually suggest that maybe, hey, you might want to use these keywords because you're either showing up for them or they're really relevant to you. So it's a great tool, great resource. If you're not using any sort of tracking platform, I suggest you start with them because it's free. And then obviously you can upgrade from there if it's something that you either need more keywords or something that you want more access to.
Thank you so much. We have one more question on here. Edward is asking your recommendation for the best site to get a full report of what's wrong with our website, what needs correction, and how we are ranking, and what needs to be corrected to avoid Google violations.
Good question. Unfortunately, Edward, I was going to say I have yet to find that same perfect website that gives you everything all in one. I'm sure there are tools out there that at least get you closer to that, but at least for now I would say it's going to be a multiple stage or a multiple tool need to evaluate kind of each one of those segments. To determine if your site's getting crawled or if it has errors, again, go back to Google Search Console, start there. It's free, it doesn't take very long, and it's straight from Google themselves. So if there are errors, you're hearing it from Google as opposed to a third-party tool that's just trying to sell you something or whatever it might be. So start there. When it comes to the traffic, again, use Google Analytics. It's free as well. Has a lot of great stuff. Very in-depth. I could talk all day about Google Analytics, but it has a lot more data and a lot more metrics than you'll probably ever use, but hey, more information is better than none. And then from a ranking standpoint, SEMrush, ProRank Tracker, those are great tools to either track continuous rankings or try to find rankings. And then obviously, BuzzSumo, go back to that. That's going to give you kind of, is your content getting used correctly, or are there other sources that have similar content that's getting used better that you can learn from. Free website score is a great one to determine, like I said, if your website's on the right track or not. So I would probably start with free website score. Start there, get a score, and then start going down the other tools, the Search Console, the Analytics, ProRank Tracker, BuzzSumo, all that, as far as trying to answer those questions that you're looking for.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering these questions. Thank you so much for submitting your questions. We really want to do our best to make sure that the information that we provide in these webinars is thorough, that you understand it, and that you can walk away from this time together with some solid knowledge and tools that you can use in your business to help it succeed. Once again, thank you so much for attending this webinar. Thank you, Colton, for presenting. If you have any additional questions or thoughts, comments, anything like that, we'd love for you to connect with us on any of our social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or you can always tweet Colton if you have any additional questions related to this presentation or topic here. Again, his Twitter handle is on your screen, hectic_C. And we would love to hear from you. If you have any additional questions related to the webinar as well, you can always email us at social@boostability.com, and we will do our best to get all of your questions related to this answered to you in a timely manner. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you will check back with us, and we will have another webinar in October. So feel free to check our website, boostability.com. /events and webinars, and you will be able to see all of our upcoming webinars, and we'd love to see you on the next one. So again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.